Hey everybody, welcome into the Irish NFL show. It is Sunday. We're back for another fun-filled non-NFL Sunday on the Irish NFL show. But we're all going to chat and have a bit of crack tonight. Presented by Trust Gaming, presented by Mini Arcade Systems, and also presented by the College Football Classic taking place in Dublin this August between Nebraska and Northwestern. All information is on collegefootballireland.com. Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, Michael McQuaid. How are we doing, boys? Good?
Good, yeah. There's plenty to talk about, but yeah, when you say the college game is in August, Michael, it cannot come around quickly enough.
Yeah, I suppose little snippets of information as the week's gone on with the combine, and you try to watch as much as the combine as you can to, I suppose, to get an interest for what's coming down the line when we're doing our draft season in April. But it's never going to be the same as watching the real games. And look, free agency's coming up. That'll be exciting enough for a week or two in terms of players moving around. But like Colin says, we're a long way off a new season.
Oh, come on now, boys. We've got a big show ahead of us. We've got a couple of great guests, including a 4-time All-Ireland winner, and he's not a Dublin player, Brian. So excited for tonight's show. It's going to be a bit of crack. But let's jump on the news that happened on, I think it was Tuesday, or it was Monday. Monday at 2:30. I'll start with you, Colin. The London games. Obviously, the big shock was the Packers being announced because we obviously knew the Jaguars were going to play a game in Wembley. The Saints were pretty much odds on after our guy Jeff Duncan announced it, but the Packers, Colin, giving up a home game is huge news for fans in Ireland and obviously fans in the UK and Europe as well.
Yeah, it's great for fans over here. It had to happen. I know the Packers were the last holdouts, but the league were going to strong arm them, and it's great for the global growth of the game. I mean, look, we have seen the way in which the league has committed to growing the game. We've seen the resources they have put in, both like the UK, in Germany, in Mexico. We had Henry Hodgson on with us who talked about the desire to grow in other markets. So to me, it's not a surprise that it's finally come around. I am delighted. They're huge. Obviously support to the Packers across the island, and I have no doubt that they will all make their way over to London. And by all accounts, Aaron Rodgers will be there. He will be the quarterback. They will get to see him in perhaps his last rodeo, though maybe he might get that contract extension, and who knows where Jordan Love will go. But I am convinced that Tottenham will be awash with Kerry colours when the Packers come to London.
Brian, is this like Gareth Brooks and Oxygen mixed together in terms of his ticket slump? Because this is going to be a hard ticket to get.
It's going to be really, really, really crazy. Can you imagine, that Ticketmaster that morning? Whoever's managing that needs to make sure it's robust enough to manage the online sales. Like, I think the premium tickets will go fairly quickly as well this year, because I think a lot of people just won't take a chance on trying to buy them on the general sales. Look, they agreed in the last year, 1 in every 8 years in terms of you have to come over and play a game. And obviously the Packers were the last team of the 32 to make their way over. I was surprised it was a home game that they were giving up. I know they have the 9th game next year. All NFC teams have the 9th game in terms of the 17 game season. But I felt to be an away team. I didn't think they would actually go and actually give up a game in Lambeau. But having watched Mark Murphy's interview this week, he really is keen on doing it. He's been on the UK Northern Packers podcast this week, which is great to see, because he's given something back to the fans this side of the world. And look, for us, who, please God, hopefully we'll be over there covering the game for the show in terms of doing a similar show to what we did last year. It's great, because just no matter who they play, when you look at the opponents, potentially the Titans, who are a really good team last year, number 1 seed, Cowboys are in the mix, Giants are in the mix. There's whoever they get, it's going to be a really good game for the neutral.
Absolutely, and I think there's a couple of really key things here as well. First off, it looks as if Green Bay, Green Bay is a contender to host the NFL draft in 2024. I would say their process may have been streamlined with this home game, but the teams have to do it now once every 8 years, and it really helps us, international fans. And we'll probably talk about Germany down the stretch in a bit, but it does become more clear now for certain markets with the international marketing what teams are going to play where, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few years. And I for one can't wait to go to that game, and I know Colin will probably sport a similar coloured jacket at the game. But We know the Jaguars are coming to Wembley. It's great to see the Jaguars commit again to Wembley, so we'll probably not focus too much on Jacksonville because we've seen them last year. But Colin, for the Saints to come back to London after as a home team, as a long absence there, it's an intriguing game, because the Saints this is the difference. The Packers and the Saints must play an AFC team. Okay, that is 100% ironclad. That's the agreement that they have in this 9th home game of the season. But for the Jaguars, it's completely different. But the Saints, Column, have to play the Bengals, the Raiders, or the Ravens at Tottenham. Either of those choices is half decent, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a pretty solid matchup, though it's going to be a new era. I mean, this is the Saints without Sean Payton, and we don't know who the QB will be as yet. Will it be Jameis? Maybe, but nobody's entirely sure. I think the Dennis Allen head coaching career should be an interesting one. He's obviously an amazing DC. The way in which he shut down Tom Brady and the Bucs. And maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Tom later in the show. Some interesting quotes this week, I thought. But the Saints are obviously a big franchise, and the matchups that you talked about there, yeah, that would certainly, I think, whet the appetite for any fans over here. And I do think probably when you bring in a new head coach, fans will want to see how it's going to work out. So I think when you look at the Packers and the Saints, given the matchups you've talked about, it'll be intriguing to see for the Jags who they bring. But yeah, the Saints are just one of the teams that kind of, everyone, there's something about the Saints. Everyone knows about the city. Yeah, they will certainly be one that will, I think, get a big crowd as well.
Brian, Matt Schneidman guessed in January, or didn't guess, he stated he thought the game for the Packers might be against the Patriots. The Packers have to play an AFC team, so it could you actually imagine if that game happens? But also great to see the Saints back as well.
Yeah, well, I kind of ruled out the Patriots because I didn't think that would be a game that we'd see this side of the world. But if that was the game, I mean, that would be that's going back nostalgia type games, and for us to be there to see that game would be fantastic. I thought it'd be the Titans or the Jets. On the Saints, the Who Dat Nation, like they've got a significant following in Ireland, they've got a significant following in the UK. They're always entertaining Saints, throughout the years. As a neutral watching them, I know Breeze isn't there anymore, but even last year we've seen some really good games. And you look at those opponents that you've called out, Michael. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson, they'll be looking to make a step in the right direction after a disappointing season. You've got the Bengals coming off the Super Bowl. Josh McDaniels is committed to Derek Carr next season already. This week at the Combine, the Raiders, whoever comes out of the draw in terms of when the league decide who it's going to be, we're in for a really good game as well.
And for me, if I'm the Saints ownership, I do not want any LSU fans at a Bengals game anywhere near it. And I genuinely think if I was putting money on it, which I'm not, I think it will be the Bengals against the Saints until proven otherwise. But either game's a great option. Something tells me, lads, the Jets could be that Packers game. Time will tell. Packers fans, stay tuned to this show over the next few weeks. Germany, Colin, that's good. Yeah. The Buccaneers are going to play. We all know who the Buccaneers are playing. Are we going to say it in this? I mean, this hasn't been confirmed, but are we just going to ignore it for the next 2 or 3
minutes?
Well,
I assume you're talking about the Chiefs.
It seems it's going to be the Chiefs.
It certainly does. They're the two, obviously, with the most interest in that market. With the Bucs, it's been an interesting week, obviously, and yet another one of their big name players going off into retirement, Ali Marpet, and the Tom Brady story is that Tom may not be done, or maybe Tom decided that he didn't want to work with BA. I see BA saying they won't trade him because it's bad business, which is an interesting one given BA himself came out of retirement and the Cards could have played hardball. So, interesting times down in Tampa Bay for the Glazers. But look, the Germany game should be incredible. The fans over there have waited a long time. We know that the semi-pro leagues get like thousands of people. And I think you will have fans from all over Europe and the US who are going to want to experience what an NFL game in Germany is like. So I don't think it's going to matter who is playing quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who is on the O-line, or indeed who they're playing. It is going to be party central in Germany, and I think the league could not have gone with a better country to further expand. It should be absolutely fantastic.
Brian, the Aer Lingus flight at 9 a.m. in the morning is going to be great crack on the Saturday. Can you imagine that flight? It's going to be full of NFL fans. It's going to be mad.
I know. I've already been checking out those flights. Yeah, I think it's 6:45 in the morning. I think even earlier.
I don't know. I'll publicly tell everyone here, Brian. I booked the 5th and the 13th of Saturdays. I've booked both flights because they were like €42 or something for the crack. So I can't wait.
We're certainly making plans early, because who wouldn't want to be at a? We're assuming and we're guessing based on the speculation that it's going to be the Chiefs. I mean, you're only a year removed from a Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl, and within less than 2 years, you could be in Munich watching that game. It's a fantastic game. Just on the quarterback thing, like one thing I took away from that Bruce Arians interview, which I watched live on NFL Network during the week, was he was adamant it's Kyle Trask is the quarterback next season. They picked him in the second round. If Brady comes back, different scenario, but they don't believe Brady will come back. So look, it's rumbling on. It's going to rumble on for months on end. I think there is, as much as Munich are going to be delighted, I think there will be a little bit of regret and sadness to the fact that for a lot of people would have loved to have seen Brady, being the first game in Germany and Brady. And maybe that would be a reason why Brady might look to come out of retirement to be involved in that, but it's a bit of a stretch. Look, it's going to be a great game. By then, those two teams should be challenging for the division, we think. But every NFL season is very different, as we saw this year with a team that won 4 games last year and ends up in SoFi in the Super Bowl.
The great thing about the German market at the minute is we know the teams that have picked that for the home market are the Bucks, the Chiefs, the Patriots, and the Panthers. And it has been confirmed in German media this week that out of those 4 teams, one of them each year for the next 4 years will have to play a home game in Germany. So it's either the Patriots, the Chiefs, or the Panthers next year. There's big rumors doing the rounds that it's going to be the Patriots in Frankfurt next year. I don't know. Let's get this year over as first. I mean, it's great. Look, I'm delighted for the Cardinals fans that they're going to Mexico, but this is not the Mexican-Irish NFL show. But, look, I think it's great. There's talk it's going to be on Sunday Night Football or something for I don't know what the week. There's some sort of weekend. I'm not sure what it's called.
There's it's a significant bank holiday in the Mexican calendar on the weekend, and which they're scheduling, which is I think is around the 21st, and they want to play it on the ESPN Monday Night Football because it coincides with the bank holiday. So. Yeah,
lovely. I'm excited for these games. And,
that'll be great. In fairness, what you would say is Mexican fans travel every single ground I have been to in the United States. There have been great fans from Mexico. I imagine that's another one that will be a really, really fantastic game. And it's great that after an absence of a few years that Mexico will have games again.
The Cardinals played in the first regular season game in Mexico in 2005 against the 49ers. For anybody watching and wondering what I said a few minutes ago, the teams that are playing in Tottenham are part of the 9 home games this year. They must play a team in a different conference to them. The Jaguars are separate because they have opted to give up a home game. They only have 8 home games. They can play a team in the AFC or NFC, so your guessing can start now. Nobody really knows what that Jaguars game is until everything's released, potentially at the end of next month or middle of
just on that one, Michael, because we both have a vested interest in that one at the moment, because we're keeping
your Cowboys playing the
your Broncos and potentially my Giants. Who knows? It could be one or the other. So who knows? It might be that. It could be the. I'd say it might be the Cowboys, because I think the Jags are, with the other games and people in the UK potentially making the decision whether they go to all games or 2 games or 1 game. I think unfortunately for the Jags, they may fall down into the third choice for a lot of people, unless you're a Jags fan. But then again, that's why I think they might select someone like the Cowboys, because such a huge following of Dallas here in Ireland and the UK, that would allow them to fill that game with fans, which, look, I'd imagine it'd be a sellout, but in terms of the choices where people will want to be, Packers, Saints, Jags, I'd imagine.
It seems to be 2 different registration links for signing up for tickets. You got to go to Jaguars UK to sign up for an interest in the Wembley game. There is no mention of previous season ticket holders, so get signed up for that. And Tottenham has got its own link. You can check out all the things on the NFL UK website for more details. Have we any other business, gentlemen, to talk about here? Colin, have you anything you want to talk about? The current state of the economy, the census, which is apparently happening soon in the south. Or what do you want to talk about? The season's over. I mean, combine's on. You enjoying it?
Well, the combine is on, and at the time of recording, obviously, I think Pickett's hand size is probably what everyone has been talking about today. That's going to be an interesting one to see whether that does truly have as big an impact. But Michael Vick is the only other quarterback people can point to, and whether he is quite as athletic at Michael Vick, I don't think he's in anywhere near the same league as that. I suppose, look, the other thing is the Kyler Murray situation for the Cardinals, which this seems to be it now. There's drama every year with the quarterbacks, and they make demands, and Kyler wants a new contract, but Lamar Jackson won an MVP, and he doesn't yet have a new contract. So, and again, you go back to when the Cards were losing in that playoff game, and Peyton Manning wasn't too pleased with Kyler. Eli Manning wasn't too pleased, and I think everyone was watching on. I think Kyler probably could have picked a better time to push for the new contract. I see Cliff was on the Pat McAfee show and saying they all get on, but it's business, and he's going to let Kyler take care of that. So I'm interested to see whether the Cards will give in. I would be surprised if they did, but it's the QB drama. Russell Wilson removing the Seahawks from his Twitter page. I still don't think he's going anywhere. I would be surprised. And Aaron Rodgers, we know what's happening, but he refuses to say what it is. So it's the merry-go-round continues.
Brian, any news for us?
Well, I'm going back into my little selfish world, because we spent so much time in the playoffs focusing on teams who were playing when we were in the Super Bowl. It's time to actually go back and start looking at what our own teams are doing. And the good thing about the combine this week was, what I would say was enjoyable, was to see all the head coaches, general managers doing the press conferences, and you're starting to get all these little snippets of information. They're all playing a game against one another in terms of who they're really after in free agency and then the draft and stuff. And I'm going to go, the Giants, I mean, we're probably the worst team in the NFL in terms of being known for the last 5 years. And I don't say that lightly, because there's teams last year where we were saying, oh, they're 40 million over the cap, like the Saints. Oh, they're in a bad situation. They've been run badly. The difference is they were still winning games and going to playoffs. And once they didn't get to the Super Bowl, they put everything on the line to get there. Like, I'm watching a new general manager trying to get a team under the cap. And there's been no reward for all the pain. Like, it's 5 years of completing utter garbage. And now we're in a situation where you're trying to get players to take massive discounts on contracts, and you're getting rid of players who rightly should be got rid of. I was surprised Devontae Booker got moved, because he actually had a good season. But you're seeing a new general manager who's gone into this knowing it's a long-term plan, straight away having to cook people immediately and cook contracts. So there's a long road ahead for, not just the Giants, there's a long road ahead for a lot of teams in the NFL to get back being competitive in the playoffs.
He was dressed very well as well. I don't really have anything to say. I mean, I feel like if I say something, it's going to turn into the whole conversation. I'll say this and I'll leave it at that.
Say it.
Go on.
I think Jimmy G's going to Denver. So I'm just going to put it out there. I know. I'm going to leave. Colin, let's just take it like this. We're just under 8 weeks away from the draft, but we really do. And I have to say this now. This is obviously pre-recorded because of the off-season. Our guests tonight are brilliant, and some fantastic content just from them, and their thoughts on the league, and their thoughts on the NFL in general. Do you want to introduce our first guest?
Our first guest came about actually from a chance meeting at when we were over in LA, and it is a guy who I think, Michael, you were a fan for quite a while. I remember you sharing the Titans Avengers video on the WhatsApp groups. So he we're delighted to have the opportunity to chat to Justin Graver, who is with around the NFL, around with the Titans, involved in a whole host of different projects, but he has fantastic editing skills, and we had a great chat with him about the Titans, about I suppose his the different kind of projects he's involved in. And yeah, I guess that is our first guest. And we also, as you alluded to, Michael, we have a champion coming up as our second guest. So yeah, stack show this evening.
This evening on the Irish NFL Show, we're delighted to welcome in Justin Graver, media producer, video editor with the NFL, different outlets as well. Justin, it's brilliant to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having me on to talk about this, guys.
Justin, I'll give you two questions for a start. Have you any Irish heritage? Have you been to Ireland? And secondly, can you maybe tell some viewers or listeners maybe a bit about yourself? Because some of your media work is top notch. I am referring to the Avengers video, which is pinned on that is the greatest thing honestly.
I appreciate it. Thanks very much. I don't have any Irish heritage. I've never been to Ireland. Closest I've been is to London once when I was 17, I think. I have a lot of German background, but no Irish, unfortunately. I'd love to see Ireland one day. I hear it's beautiful out there. But yeah, my role right now, I work for the NFL as a podcast and media digital content producer. I have a few shows that I'm working on, and on the side I make videos and Twitter threads and film breakdowns about the Tennessee Titans, which is my favorite team. And that's actually how I ended up getting my job at the NFL, was just making videos on Twitter and doing podcasts and live streams. And I applied for the job and they didn't care. I worked for a photographer here in LA for like 7 years, working with some celebrities and high profile stuff. And like, it was a really cool, fun job. NFL didn't care at all about that experience when they were interviewing me for this job. They just cared about what I was doing on Twitter with podcasts and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Well, your videos are top notch, in fairness, so I'm not surprised they sat up and take notice. And the other thing, Justin, is you haven't been to Ireland yet, so you now have a whole set of tour guides to show you around. But as you mentioned, you are a Tennessee Titans fan. Suppose just your take on the season as it played out. Vrabel ends up with Coach of the Year, but how did you feel about like the loss to the Bengals, and your thoughts maybe on what the team need to do in the offseason?
Yeah, the Titans had a pretty tough year, but they battled through lots of injuries. Obviously, you lose Derrick Henry. I think Titans fans in general learned a lot about the team this year, because before this season, I think a lot of people would have said Derrick Henry is the engine of the Titans offense, and without him, they can't do anything. Tannehill is mediocre at best, and maybe some other things like that. But then Henry goes down, and the running game didn't really suffer that much. Deontay Foreman comes in and looks like a stud behind the offensive line. They ran for over 200 yards as a team against the New England Patriots. They beat the Rams and the Saints without Derrick Henry, and they had some quality wins on the schedule without Henry on the team. So now you're looking at how to attack this offseason. Derrick Henry came back for the playoffs, lose to the Bengals. Henry had a lot of carries in that game and wasn't super effective. Maybe too soon off the injury, wasn't back in his rhythm of things. So I think you look at just adding playmakers around Tannehill in the offense, because Ryan Tannehill really struggled in that loss. The rest of the team played pretty well. The defense had 9 sacks on Joe Burrow's Bengals, but the offense couldn't do a whole lot. A.J. Brown was effective, but he was really the only playmaker doing anything. Julio Jones, who knows if his hamstring will ever be really healthy again. So I think for the Titans, you just got to add other wide receivers, playmakers, guys that can like take any touch to the house. And I think that's the kind of, generate explosive plays like that. As far as the loss to the Bengals, it really sucks when your team gets 9 sacks in a game and loses, which is just, it's only happened like twice in NFL history or something like that. It's crazy. But the Bengals, until that Super Bowl, they had a lot of like team of destiny vibes about them. I thought it was just, they were really fun to watch. If you're going to lose to somebody in the AFC, like I'd hate to have lost to Josh Allen, hate to have lost to the Chiefs, because the Titans beat those teams already in the regular season. But the Bengals, like, they were such a fun young team to root for, so I was okay with it.
Just another interesting story which broke the weekend we were all in LA, I suppose impacts your division. It's the Colts and the fact that it looks like already they're moving on from Carson Wentz. Kind of see it as a bit of a strange move, because for a long time during the season, it looked like they were certainly going to be in the playoffs, and if they were a game away against the Jags from being in the playoffs. So to make that decision now, with no first-round pick and no third-round pick, because obviously that's gone to Philadelphia, are you surprised they're going down that road? And, it's a bit of an unknown then for them in terms of where they go from here.
Right. I don't think Carson Wentz is a great quarterback who's going to take them that far, but what is the upgrade that they're looking at? Are they going to try to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo or something? Like, they have so much money or picks that they've dedicated to Wentz. Now they're going to go and mortgage more of their future to go get a mediocre veteran, or they're going to draft somebody in like the second round and hope that he can start as a rookie. I agree. It's kind of weird. I think it comes from Jim Irsay. I think this is like a meddling owner thing. He put out some weird tweets during the Super Bowl and during the playoffs. It was like, if your team can't score 30 points and you can't hold opponents under 30 points, then you're not going to win. And it's like, yeah, that's football. You kind of score and you kind of play defense. But I don't know. I would be worried if I was a Colts fan that like Jim Irsay is getting his hands into things and not letting the people he hired to do their jobs do those jobs. I think it's a weird move. I don't think Carson Wentz is a good quarterback, but I think he's better than anything they would be able to replace him with right now. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you.
We're in peak off-season mode to the point, was it like 2 or 3 weeks before the Super Bowl? Actually, might have been a week before the Super Bowl. People were saying that Aaron Rodgers was trying to buy a house in Nashville. I have to say, I just started laughing when I seen that. I love this time of the year, Justin, but I guess for you, as somebody, invested in the Titans, what do you want to see Ryan Tannehill maybe improve most of all in this offseason? Maybe recharge, or is there anything that really stands out to you?
Yeah, I don't know if this comes from Tannehill himself or if this comes from the offensive coordinator and the play design or what, but it feels like he doesn't target his best players in crucial moments. And if you go all the way back to the 2020 playoff loss at home as the 4 seed to the Baltimore Ravens, the last play of the Titans season on offense was an interception targeting 4th string wide receiver Khalif Raymond, who fell down on the route, and the season ended with a Ryan Tannehill interception. This year against the Bengals, you got A.J. Brown and Julio Jones as your top 2 wide receivers, and you're targeting undrafted free agent second-year Nick Westbrook-Akine on the most important play of the game. Ball's batted in the air and intercepted. Second year in a row, the Titans season ends on a Ryan Tannehill interception. Like, I think it's just about decision making. The interception he threw in that game, incredible. Well, he threw 3, but the tipped one on the screen pass, Mike Hilton makes an incredible play to tip the ball and come down with it. But the throw wasn't there. Just throw it at somebody's feet. Make better decisions. So it's weird because he had a really great 2019 when he took over for Marcus Mariota. He had a really great 2020 season. A lot of people say like, oh, it's Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, and maybe so. Maybe a lot of it is having those playmakers around him, but he was near the top of the league in EPA per play, top of the league in passer rating, top of the league in yards per attempt. All these stats that he was just like up there with the best quarterbacks in the league. 2021, not a great season. They lose Arthur Smith to the Falcons. Todd Downing steps in as offensive coordinator. kind of a lot of Titans fans were hoping that Todd Downing would get fired after this season, but wasn't working with a whole lot with injuries to Henry and AJ Brown, Julio Jones. Everybody was injured this year for the Titans. So I'd like to see Tannehill make better decisions overall. Target your best players in the fourth quarter. AJ Brown had 1 target in the fourth quarter of the Bengals game. And if that's like the offensive coordinator just calling more plays for AJ, whether it's like a screen, just get him the ball and let's see if he can make a play. That's what I'd like to see more of. Just get your best players the football. And that's, playmakers make plays and win football games.
Yeah, and in terms of, I guess, making plays, one of the Titans players who did that more than anyone this year was Jeffrey Simmons. And just interested in your take on them. I'm a Broncos fan. Jarrell Casey came across, and obviously that unfortunately due to injury didn't work out. But the Titans did that, because they believed in Simmons. But this year was a real breakout year. And I'm interested, I suppose, in both in terms of Simmons, but also why do you think he, in terms of the league, flew under the radar? Like, it seemed to me while watching the game, like it was very obvious this was one of the best defensive tackles. He doesn't get the Pro Bowl. Obviously, he has that game against Joe Burrow. But what, from your perspective as a Titans fan, why did Jeffrey Simmons not get the respect he deserved?
I think playing on the Titans has a little bit to do with it. The Titans are a really small market. They don't get a ton of national attention, national recognition. The Colts had 7 Pro Bowlers and they didn't make the playoffs. The Titans had 1 originally, and then it ended up with Landry and Simmons and Roger Saffold all getting added as alternates. But it's kind of crazy when you think about like the media drives so much of like what we think narrative wise about which teams are good and which players are great. And Jeffrey Simmons had 3 sacks against the Rams earlier this year. He had 3 sacks in the playoff game against the Bengals. He's put in some monster dominant performances. He hasn't been super consistent. He'll have a 3-sack game and then he'll kind of disappear the next game. I think he was helped a lot by the addition of Danico Autry, the Titans signed this offseason, who I think is a super underrated defensive tackle who can go out and play end as well. He had 9.5 sacks this year himself, so he actually had more sacks than Simmons on the season. He was a great addition to the defensive line. And having a front 4 with Harold Landry, Bud Dupree on the outside, Danico Autry, and Jeffrey Simmons on the inside allows Jeffrey Simmons to get those one-on-one matchups. And I think that's why he was able to kind of break out this year, is the players around him were simply a lot better than the last 2 years. And also, he's just that much further removed from the torn ACL. He fell in the draft to the Titans because of that ACL tear that he suffered training for the Combine back in his 2019 draft season. So I think being under the radar from that standpoint is one of the reasons, but I also think the NFL kind of does this a lot where they give a player the proper respect the year after. Like they're sometimes a year late on like identifying who these rising players are. Just as a media base, we kind of do that because we're fixated on the guys we already know. And over this next few months, over the summer, we're going to get people like Brian Baldinger and national media analysts like breaking down stuff from last season, and the Twitter timeline is going to be filled with Jeffrey Simmons highlights. And like going into next year, there's going to be a lot of hype around what's he going to do? Is he going to take another step? And I think we'll really start to see him get the respect he deserves next year. I don't think he's like an Aaron Donald level player, but I don't think anyone is really an Aaron Donald level player. If he can get to like a Chris Jones level of impact, then I think he'll really start to get the respect that he deserves.
Justin, the Super Bowl just gone. There's the first Super Bowl since 1975 that where a first and a second seed didn't make the final. And obviously the Titans were the number 1 seed this year. And Vrabel has done a fantastic job over the course of his time there. Did a lot of the Titans fans step away from the season feeling like it's one that got away? Like, you've touched on the fact that he's lost the Bengals and you felt they were on a, I suppose, a destiny run. But if it had been the Bills or Chiefs, it would have been more disappointing. Do you feel that was a great season overall, or is one that could have really been a lot better?
I think it was disappointing overall because, these kinds of opportunities and these kinds of Super Bowl windows just don't come along very often. And to be able to get the 1 seed and the home field advantage and just squander it the way the team did, and really Ryan Tannehill did, to be completely frank, is disappointing, especially in a year that felt so wide open. It's like you don't have to deal with the Mahomes and the Josh Allens or the Tom Bradys. Like all those guys were eliminated before the Super Bowl, at least, and most of them before the conference championship. So to see this kind of year where it's that wide open and you're the team that's like battled through so much adversity and so many injuries and still managed to get the 1 seed. I think it's a successful regular season, but to not even win a playoff game overall is a pretty big disappointment for most Titans fans. I mean, Titans fans wanted to see changes. They were like, fire the offensive coordinator, bring in a new quarterback. Like, Titans fans were massively overreacting. Like, guys, we got the 1 seed. Like, we don't need to make sweeping changes. We just need to be better in the playoffs. But yeah, overall, pretty disappointing outcome.
Yeah, like the Titans, for someone who's not a Titans fan, I enjoy watching the Titans. As we say in Ireland, something's good crack, it's good fun. Mike Vrabel, Justin, is great crack. Like, his press conferences get me through a working week. Obviously, like, you're a busy man working in the NFL. Lots of stuff going on there with producing around the NFL podcast. And look, I know as well, like the guys are so popular over here, and the heroes are just growing and growing in popularity, and they're great guys as well. We were lucky to meet Dan, and I said hello to Mark a few weeks ago. Just your thought maybe on the growth of that show over here, and also the growth of the league over here. It's incredible to see, even over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it is really cool to see the league continue to expand. I know that Around the NFL has such a big international audience. The Great Britain, Australia, and it's growing in Germany. The NFL is going to start playing games in Germany now too. So I think it's great for the game, and it's cool to see players who are not born in America come over and be successful football players in the league. I think Around the NFL is, I mean, honestly, has a big part in raising the popularity of the sport because it gives you another set of narratives to follow, another group of people to like listen to talk about football that you continue to stay engaged with. And those guys, I can't say enough about how cool it is to work with those guys. Erica Tamposi, Ricky Hollywood, she's the producer, and I kind of just like assist her, and some episodes I'll take on more of a bigger role when she gets really busy because she's a growing superstar herself. She's got her own podcast now, Split Ends, and she's doing big things. She's going to keep rising, and it's cool to see her continuing to get success, and that gives me more opportunity to work with those guys on the show. And honestly, like, they constantly make an effort to bring me on the show, ask how I'm doing, thoughts on the Titans. They know that I know more about the Titans than they do because it's hard to follow 32 teams in the NFL as closely as a fan follows their team, right? But yeah, it's super fun and atmosphere to work in, and everyone jokes around. Obviously, the loss of Chris Wessling weighs heavy on everyone's heart, and I personally, I never got to know Chris. I started working in April, so it was a few months after he passed, but his impact is still felt, and like I feel sad I never got to know him. But the guys do such a great job carrying on his legacy and carrying on the show and continuing to make it fun even through hard times. Like the Super Bowl especially is like almost the anniversary of Chris's passing, and the guys continue to put on a good show and make it fun for everybody and the listeners and keep everyone engaged. So I really love working with those guys. They're great on camera, and they're really nice guys, great guys off camera as well.
Justin, I suppose when I look at the AFC South, certainly when it comes to the AFC, I think outside of the Titans, the Colts, Texans, and Jags possibly the most dysfunctional ownership. We touched on Javerse earlier, but certainly the Texans and the Jags. I mean, I think potentially only the NFC East could come anywhere near it. But like, what's it like as a Titans fans as you survey the other teams and you look at their ownership dysfunction?
Yeah, you know what's crazy? The Titans have now had 6 straight winning seasons, which is in a league full of parity in the NFL. I mean, I don't think they get recognized enough for the consistency that they've shown over these last 6 years. But a couple years ago, 2018, 2019, it was like, can the Titans pull off a division win? And like, you're still rooting in week 15, 16, 17 for like the division's coming down to the wire. It's either the Colts or Deshaun Watson and the Texans. But things changed so quickly with Deshaun Watson's entire trade request and legal situation. And I don't really want to get too wrapped up on that. But the Texans are such a dysfunctional organization now. The Jaguars, obviously, like, who didn't see Urban Meyer failing? I mean, I feel like that was something that we all could see coming from a mile away, well before anything bad actually happened. And so going into this last season and even this season before it, as a Titans fan, you're kind of like, this is what Patriots fans must have felt like for years. Is like, all right, when do the playoffs start? Because you just kind of expect to win the division when the rest of it is being like all these teams are being run so poorly. And I saw a chart today. It was using Pro Football Focus's wins above replacement metric, which whatever you think of PFF is neither here nor there. It had every team's total wins above replacement added through the draft at non-quarterback positions. Every single team in the NFL was positive. They've added wins above replacement, which makes sense. You're adding players to your team, except for one. The Texans had a negative wins above replacement added in the draft since 2019. How is that even possible? So yeah, seeing the dysfunction around the division, it's kind of fun to laugh at. My buddies have a podcast, Football and Other F Words podcast, which is a Titan-centric podcast, but one of their favorite segments to do is just laugh at the Jaguars and like look at the moves that Jaguars have made recently and honestly just laugh at them. Although we'll see what happens here. I mean, Doug Peterson's a pretty good hire for them, but even that was such a weird process because it came out of nowhere. He wasn't mentioned as one of their finalists. It was like they had all these other interviews lined up, and Byron Leftwich doesn't want to work with Trent Baalke, and there are rumors that he's going to bring Adrian Wilson in to be the GM, but then none of that happens, and Trent Baalke's still there and hiring Doug Peterson. So as long as Trent Baalke's in charge, I think that the Jaguars will continue to be a disaster. It's pretty funny just like looking around the division and kind of laughing at the other teams, to be honest.
Justin, we're a few weeks away from free agency, and like free agency frenzy, and that week itself is always mad, and just deals seem to be happening every couple of minutes. And the cap, of course, has been increased significantly compared to where it was last year. So we should see some heavy hitters getting involved. Is there any particular team that you think, if they get the right players in place, can come back next year? If even teams that didn't make the playoffs that you feel that are on the kind of the cuff of being a really good side going forward?
I think the Chargers are a team like that if they make the right additions on the offensive line, I feel like they need to get some veterans in on the offensive line because they continue to kind of strike out with their offensive line draft picks, although Rashawn Slater was very good this year. So I think the Chargers, if they continue to beef up their defense, if they can retain Mike Williams somehow, he's a candidate, I think, for maybe not the franchise tag, maybe the transition tag, which is a little bit lower cost and allows him to go try and match the deal. But I don't know if he's really going to command a huge contract because he's not the most consistent playmaker. But I think the Chargers are a team that are like ready to take that next step. Justin Herbert is such an electric, fun quarterback that they were so close to making the playoffs this year. I'm honestly not sure what happened to them down the stretch. They kind of like just wasted a chance to be in the dance this year. But I think that will help them fuel for next year. So the Chargers are a team I'm watching. I was hoping for an LA in LA Super Bowl this year. We got half of it. That was fun, but
well, I for one really enjoyed the Chargers tailgate in Santa Monica the night before the Super Bowl. That was the most random thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's all love. It's all good.
Yeah.
Justin, look, it's been great hearing your thoughts, not just about the Titans, but about the league as well. Hopefully, we can do this again soon because it's a long off season. But for people, especially the growing fan base in Ireland, the UK, and Europe, can you maybe let them know where to find you online?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Twitter at Titans Film Room. Titans Film Room. I post a lot of my content there, videos, and I constantly posting and retweeting the NFL podcast stuff too that I'm working on. Working on a new podcast with Rachel Bonetta, who is a really fantastic talent. The NFL hired right at the beginning of last season. She's on the Game Day View show where they make picks for the weekend, and she's been on the Good Morning Football, or not Good Morning. She does Good Morning Football when Kay Adams is out stepping in, and also the Good Morning or Football Sunday, whatever the Sunday morning show. I should know what this is called, but the Sunday morning show previewing games and stuff. And she's now got her own podcast, and we're continuing to grow her show. Hopefully we'll have a video show by next fall that she's like the main driver of, and she's really, it's great to work with her. So I retweet a lot of those clips and a lot of those podcasts, and follow me, Titans Film Room, if you're interested in not just Titan stuff, but NFL. Lots of Titan stuff too, but a lot of broad NFL stuff as well.
Okay, folks, our next guest on the Irish NFL show. Been great to have a few Gal lads on over the last few months. We're delighted to welcome in Eoin Murphy. Obviously plays for Glenmore, but obviously a four-time All-Ireland champion with Kilkenny in the hurling. Eoin, very, very warm welcome to the Irish NFL show. How's the form?
Yeah, thanks very much. Form is good. Yeah, thanks guys for having me on. So, it's always great to come on and talk about the NFL because big follower now, to be honest. And it's funny when you say that you're an Irish NFL fan, people are just like, oh yeah, you just sit down and maybe watch a game on a Sunday. But no, it takes a little bit more than that now, I think, especially with the time difference.
Absolutely, but it is nice to have somebody into the hurling. Given that I have a Tyrone man and a Dub on the show, and I'm from Cork, so Kenny have broken my heart many a time. But tell us a little bit, because we know you're a Ravens fan, but like, talk to us. This was how you got into the sport and how you found yourself being a Ravens fan.
How I got into the sport, really, when we first sort of got the Sky Sports sub at home, I think it was maybe 2002-ish, 2003, and that's when it really would have been kicking off. Well, maybe it was just because I was getting a little bit older and sort of getting to the stage where you have your own interests and things as well. And I think I can't remember exactly what channel it was. Was it Channel 4, Channel 5? But you used to have a midweek NFL show, and it used to show all the highlights and sort of like the Red Zone, but much more condensed, like over an hour and a half, I think it was. And that's where I really got into it and just loved the whole the show element to it. And I suppose how I got into the Ravens, it was a couple of years after the first Super Bowl win, but Ray Lewis would have been just a big personality at that time. So that was somebody I was drawn to, and couple of big characters back then, and but mainly Ray Lewis, to be honest. So followed him since then through thick and thin, and it's been a decent couple of years, the last few years. Just hopefully we can keep maybe get a couple of playoff wins. It'd be good.
I was actually quite lucky when I was over in Baltimore there in December for the Green Bay game, and that ending, Harbour trying to go for two, and do you know what? Taking away from that game, I was very impressed with the organization. The stadium's pretty cool, and it's a huge statue. I mean, you're sure you've seen it. This huge statue of Ray Lewis, and
doing his dance.
Yes, and I felt like he was literally standing there looking at me. Have you had the chance to go to just sort of fly over to Baltimore for a game or anything? Or?
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've been there twice, to be honest. We were on a Kilkenny team holiday back in 2019, and it was down in Orlando. But just I said, the fact that I was over there that far, and we're lucky enough here in Kilkenny, we have a connection with UPMC, who's actually University Pittsburgh Medical Center. They're the guys, the Rooneys and the Pittsburgh Steelers and that. So at that time in 2019, went there. They were playing the Steelers. Managed to sort of swing the few contacts we have here. There's a guy from Glenmore is high up in UPMC, and he got me tickets. And similar enough, actually, a couple of weeks ago, myself and my fiance, now I was going to say girlfriend, geez, she would have killed me, but we were over in New York, and we traveled down actually for the last regular season game. So that was heartbreaking, just an overtime loss. But I'm not so sure whether the Ravens would have done much. I just don't think they had the depth in the squad, or not even the depth, but obviously they have a 53-man squad, to play the game. But I just don't think they had the quality there to do anything in the playoffs, to be honest. But you mentioned there, Michael, about the 2-point try against the Packers, and just the way the season was going with the injuries, they needed to win those games. They had to go for those sort of things, just because they were just hanging on by a string with the injuries they had, to be honest.
Yeah, the injuries this year, we've seen teams have bad injuries, but I'd never seen anything quite like what the Ravens experienced. But I suppose I'm interested in your take on Harbaugh, and given it's an interesting one, because from the outside you look at it and he's had 2 losing seasons in like a decade in Baltimore. But there was some talk of a few years ago that the Ravens might move on from him. Obviously that didn't happen, but what are your thoughts on Harbaugh as a head coach?
Yeah, around that time, I think where you're referring to, it would have been maybe the year before they drafted Lamar Jackson, and like what I actually really find funny about the Lamar Jackson thing is about 31 teams passed on him, but like people forget that the Ravens passed on him, at number 16, 17, and drafted Hollywood Brown before Lamar Jackson. So, the Ravens did actually pass on him as well, I suppose, at the same time. But, I think they really went all in getting Lamar Jackson. Then they knew they probably had to shift away from Joe Flacco, just things weren't working out. And I suppose to show how much of a loyal Ravens fan I am, I have a Joe Flacco jersey, so I deserve some credit for that. But at that time, yeah, just it's like once in a generational player will change a franchise. And you look at Joe Burrow, what he's doing with the Bengals now; they just seem to be looking down and out maybe for the last for the last 5 or 6 seasons, and it was a case of that the Ravens and Steelers could look at that as taking 2 wins, that nearly 2 guaranteed wins every year. But I just think going all in on Lamar Jackson is really probably revigorated the franchise then as well, like coming out of that Ray Lewis, Joe Flacco era, and after winning the last Super Bowl. And I still don't think they're too far away. Like I know the credit goes to Eric DeCosta as well about the roster that he builds up, but like Harbaugh has to have a say in that as well. And like it wasn't, it's only 8 months ago, we'll say last summer practically, that they probably had the strongest depth in each position, across any of the NFL teams. And then just as we mentioned, then just being pure injury ravaged this year, just sort of, feels like a little bit of a lost season. But I think they certainly probably this year, to be honest, Colin, is going to be under more pressure because it's just that expectation. Those players are coming back, and they'll have to make up for lost time. And yeah, I think this season he's going to be under a lot of pressure. Certainly going to have to make probably a deep run into the playoffs.
You've touched on Lamar there a wee bit, and look, seeing Tyler Huntley play in the flesh, I mean, this guy, like for a backup quarterback, it's not a bad option to have at the minute. Do you think there's any situation or any realization maybe in the next couple of years where you could maybe see, say, if Lamar got injured, God forbid, touch wood, it doesn't happen, but if he got injured again next season, do you think there's a situation where if Tyler Huntley comes in and plays well again or plays decently well again, that questions might start to be asked about maybe the future at that position to the Ravens?
I think they're probably being asked now because of the way he's played in the last couple of games of the season when Lamar went down with the ankle, and he was missing for that period of 4 to 5 games really. And yeah, like I've seen him playing against the Steelers that last game as mentioned, and like the conditions were horrendous, and I'm not too sure if the television cameras did it justice, but it was downpour for the whole first half. And the second half, when it stopped raining, he was probably a little bit more, he had a little bit more pies about him than Big Ben actually, and maybe that's just because of his mobility. He was able to move around the pocket as well. But yeah, I do think there's going to be questions asked. It's going to be a big off season for the Ravens, probably because they're going to have to pay Lamar. I'd be hoping that it'll be somewhat maybe a team friendly contract. He'll still certainly be a top 10 paid quarterback. Probably still deserves it, to be honest, but I'm just hoping that they can build around him as well. Like the weapons, like you'll have J.K. Dobbins coming up if he's another good season. He's going to be looking for a contract, and Mark Andrews is after being paid big. Marlon Humphrey, Peters. There's a number of other guys after being paid before Lamar. So there's only so many times you can dip into the well, and they need a number one wide receiver. I don't think Hollywood Brown is that, to be honest. Rashad Bateman is going to be an interesting one if he can get a healthy off season, what he's going to do next year. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one. He's certainly not a bad backup. I know I sort of spun off there about where he's going to be paid a big contract, and I just hope yeah, he's as much of a team player as he lets off on social media and in interviews and everything like that as well, and he can leave some for the rest of the players.
Oh, and I suppose I'm interested in, your perspective as somebody who's played under Brian Cody, an absolute legend of the game. And I think you're probably looking at, Cody, Belichick, and Ferguson as the kind of guys who have this incredible longevity, this incredible success. And I was looking up, I knew you were coming on. So I think Brian Cody's win percentage as Kilkenny manager is 74%, and Bill Belichick is 72% in his time in New England. But like for players, what's it like to play kind of under kind of that kind of legendary figure? And we all know, I suppose, like the public persona, but like the behind the scenes, you hear the way players talk about Belichick and the love they have for him. And I the same when we hear guys talk about playing under Cody. But can you just talk to us, I suppose, a little bit about playing under a manager? And I suppose it's interesting having, an athlete on who is playing under a figure like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, as you mentioned, look, maybe the media persona that he gives off, but certainly he's been a hugely influential person in, I suppose, in my playing career, because he brought me in, and when I went in first, like, it wasn't a case that I would have been a prodigy in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely, by no means, to be honest, but and wouldn't have made underage teams up to minor as well, and even at that, it was probably a little bit of a shot in the dark, you could say, maybe. So look, he recognized something in me that numerous managers before didn't, and so but like what he's done himself as a player, like, he doesn't ask you to do anything that he wouldn't have done himself. So like, that certainly means something. And if you put in the work in the background, the unseen things, the train, the gyms and stuff like that, you are going to get a chance, you'll get a crack at it. So I think players do appreciate that it's a case of you're just because it's your first year or 10th year or whatever it is, it's once it's a clean slate when you turn back in for the preseason. And I think that keeps people fresh then as well. So if you don't have that, if you don't have that energy and that freshness going in, I don't think it's too much use. But he brings that every single year, which is incredible. Similar enough with Belichick, he just absolutely loves it. And he's built up, I suppose, another formidable force there, again, like in New England. And it'll be an interesting one to see how Mac Jones uh, plays in his second year, just under Belichick, but albeit missing Mac Daniels. So yeah, look, they're two interesting characters, and so that's all I'll say on that. But he's been great to me. I honestly couldn't speak a bad word about him. Um, you know, um, but yeah, no signs of stopping anyway.
Just because Colin got the Cody thing, and I'm going to have to fire Mickey Harstein in there as well and just move on very quickly as well. I'm only messing. Obviously, legends, lads, legends. And Owen, we've been lucky to have like Paddy Clifford, Dean Rock'n'all on. We were saying to Paddy a few months ago about, like, could you actually imagine having a 7-month off season in the Gal, like no club, no champo, nothing? Like, I mean, it'd be a bit mad, wouldn't it? I mean, it must be very difficult to. I mean, you've obviously got less of an off season there, but it must be very difficult to not just stay in shape but keep the fitness up. And I'd
Yeah,
say by the time that the league comes around, that you're just champing to go. Yeah.
yeah. The way, I suppose, it's the GA is obviously much more difficult. It has to juggle practically, you know, I have to be really careful here because it's still the same organization, like the GA. It's obviously all under the one umbrella, but the way things have gone, it's like you have the club element and you have the county element, and you have to try marry those. And in my opinion, I think having the split season, it suits. And I know from talking to the guys at home and engaging with them, they much prefer it because they know when they're going to have their games. Like, and it was always just that thing of, whenever the intercounty team finishes, their championship, well, then that's when the club season starts. But you're like, how long is a piece of string? It was so hard to keep guys interested. So you couldn't blame guys for going away in the summer, going away, traveling, do whatever they want to do. But I just think now it's yeah, it's much more manageable. But the 7-month off season, no, to be honest, I couldn't. It's great now, but I think it's probably getting to the other end now where you're going to have inter-county players are just going to be completely burnt out because we're playing in such a short window. I'm not too sure the way the football season is, but like I know from the hurling season, if we make the league final or the league semi-final, we'll say for argument's sake, it's 3 weeks to championship. If we make the league final, we only have one spare weekend to championship. So like that prep, like it's just all the games are so condensed, and so it'll be whoever will stay probably injury free. Similar enough like to the NFL season, it's just game after game. So if you just get a couple of bad run of injuries, unfortunately, it just might derail your season, and that's just the way things are. Yeah, look, it's but no, look, the 7-1 thing. Hey, listen, if I was getting paid a couple of $1 million, yeah, absolutely, I'd take 8 months off then if that was the case.
Yeah, it's a funny one because obviously the headline figures for some of the guys are the mega bucks, and then you've got guys struggling just to get onto the roster. But Owen, I suppose you've spoken a little bit about the Ravens and the injuries they've had, and obviously Lamar's contract situation. But we're coming up to free agency and the draft, and I'm just interested in your thoughts. Maybe it does not even particular players, but are there positions where you'd like to see the Ravens address and strengthen this offseason?
Well, certainly in free agency, in my opinion, who I think they need to bring back is probably Marcus Peters as well. I know there's been, he's not going to be a free agent, sorry, but he's coming into his last year of contract, and there are talks of him being cut, and it's saving, I think, maybe 4.5 million, but then there's 10 million in that's going to be dead cap. So, in my opinion, I just don't see how that can make sense because he is a big game player. And do you draft a rookie cornerback then in the hope that he's going to be, an A+ draft pick, and certainly the way that the NFL has gone now, such a pass happy league, you need to have 2 top class corners. And I just think himself and Humphrey, they complement each other, to be honest. Where I'd like to see probably in the draft, it'd certainly be safety, and then on the offensive line, that needs to be sorted as well. Just reading an article before I come on, I think Villanova is going to potentially retire or be cut. That's going to save a couple of million in cap space. So yeah, look, offensive line, safety, maybe cornerback, I think. It could be an argument made for offensive line and defensive line. Just, I suppose strengthen the trenches really, because you look at the lack of sacks this year. Actually, it was probably another factor. Okay, we got key injuries on cornerback and things like that, and on the secondary. But if you can't get after the quarterback, it doesn't matter who you actually have as in the secondary. It doesn't make a difference. They'll eventually get open, and that's exactly what Joe Burrow done against the Ravens. We just weren't able to get after him. So it's simple as this probably will be the biggest off season of Harbaugh's career. Well, probably since drafting Lamar Jackson, making that decision, but certainly with the cost, I think, there's decisions. What do they pay Jackson? Are they going to keep Peters? As I said, like, they've paid big bank for Mark Andrews and Marlon Humphrey and that as well. So there's only so much that can go around. Look, where do I stop? Sure, look, if you're telling me, I maybe pick a wide receiver actually in the first round as well. So give Lamar some more help, to be honest.
Drake London. Let's see here. Only 2 months in the draft. Like, everyone always gives out, oh, here 7 months, but it flies in. Like, before you know it, you'll be sitting championship over, and sure, or
exactly.
The All Ireland's over, and we're back into to the late nights. Look, and you know what? I won't stay on this because some people, especially on Ireland of Ireland, right, that maybe don't watch the NFL. They're always like, oh, sure, look, it's slow, or it's something like this, and it's not competitive. it's probably it's one of the most competitive sports out there, because you've seen, like we've all seen this year, a Bengals team got to the Super Bowl after being nowhere 2 years ago. And my God, your Ravens are in one hell of a division. You got the Steelers that need a quarterback, the Ravens that could come back next year really with the talent that they have. The Browns, we don't know what's going on with Baker, and you must have been a sick man seeing the Bengals get to the Super Bowl as someone in your division, or were you happy for them in that sense?
Look, Joe Burrow's, he's a very likable guy, to be honest. So it was because when there's like that type of a talent coming out of college, I don't follow the college too much until it gets to, the championship games, and then they're talking about, the top picks of the draft and things like that. And then it's coming into now where really they're talking about the combine and different things. So I don't follow the college game enough to know who's going to be, midway through a season, who's going to, be a top NFL player, to be very honest with them. So, but Burrow was just one of those players that he had a highlight reel for LSU, to be honest. So, and I just thought he was a likable guy coming out from there. Baker, not so much. Don't know what it is. Never warmed to him. And I'm delighted for Odell Beckham that he went and won a ring actually in LA, because of all the stuff, and he was made out to be the troublemaker. Maybe he was. Look, I don't know, but just because I don't like Baker, but it's going to be the thing is, look, I suppose the division, obviously a couple of years ago, it was basically if you could stay ahead of the Steelers, you'd more than likely win the AFC North. But now with the Bengals, they just seem to be, because of the cap space they have and the younger players that they've drafted that are still on rookie contracts, they're going to pay big, and to try to get back there again. So it's going to be an interesting one. Free agency will be, as was mentioned, just yet to see who the Ravens cut. I just think that's going to be vital, to be honest, on how next year goes. I think Peters needs to stay, my opinion. But again, that's my opinion. That's why they pay the big bucks to Costa and these guys.
Oh, and you had the good fortune of playing with one Henry Shefflin, and I suppose for the Ravens you have Justin Tucker, and what I take from that is two guys who absolutely phenomenal, potentially the best ever to do it. And what's it like for a team and as a Ravens fan to know that if you're in a pivotal position or you're reliant on it, that player will likely come true, 99.9 times out of 100.
Yeah, it is. It's it's a huge. I won't say a fallback or anything like that, but if somebody like the percentage figure that you just mentioned there, like if he's just basically, if there's going to be placing the ball and games on the line, if it's draw a game 1 point down, if it's whatever to kick a field goal 66 yards or whatever it was, like that was outrageous. I was watching it on Red Zone, to be honest. And it was just ridiculous. And the Ravens, like they call them automatic tuck. So but it just seems to be that they're getting so, like the likes of Tucker now, you can see his value. And okay, I know the Ravens went for however many 2 points this year. But like I think, just as I mentioned earlier on, I think they had to go for those to actually try win the game, because I'm not too sure if they would have, if it went to overtime. You're depending on winning a toss and holding, Rodgers out again, and you're trying to hold Rams out, and it's just I think that would have been a serious task. But the likes of Tucker, you can see his value now. The amount of PATs are missed, the amount of that, like as we're looking at the game as high stool watchers, as we call it, and they're missing 25-yard field goals, like it's ridiculous. And you see the Chargers for years, like under Rivers, like he was always getting them so close, and it just seemed to be the kicker that let him down. So you see the value there, and now he's retired, and he's never, I think, was it one championship game he's been to, I think, if even, for a supposedly Hall of Fame player, like. So and he's just relying on that one guy. So And then look at the Bengals with McPherson, and how valuable he was through the playoff run and the last couple of games coming into the end of the season. So, I think just those highly skilled players, the kickers. Obviously, you just need to have a top class wide receiver, an actual wide receiver, one that you can go to, as well. Like those guys, just the value in those now. You need to pay them big.
Oh, and just a final question. What we love to do in this show, especially at this point in the year when we're sitting with the Siberian months ahead with no NFL, is to get some content. I'm only joking. But finally, for me, London. The Saints, apparently, are playing in London. They could, and this may not happen, just a complete disclaimer, but just in case it does, we'll clip it up and put it out on the day it's announced. Could you, I can imagine you'd be a very happy man if you were sitting maybe in October, the All Ireland's over, you've had your fifth in the bag, and you're watching the Ravens play playing the Saints in Tottenham. Would you take it and run? Would you be a happy man if it happened?
Absolutely. I'd take your hand off here now, to be honest. Yeah. And please God, with the club, we'd be in a deep run at that stage too. Normally, the London games sort of come around with they clash with the club season here in Kilkenny. So we're up senior now after winning the intermediate last year. So I'd be very happy if we were still in that latter stages and it was clashing with it. But I wouldn't want to jinx it. I was over, can't remember how many years ago now it was. Ravens played Jacksonville in Wembley and they beat us 43-7, I think. And that was the Blake Bortles Jaguars. So, yeah. Look, I won't hold any hope, to be honest. Albeit the last two games I've seen the Ravens were much, much better, to be honest. I still actually haven't got to see Lamar Jackson play in the flesh because the year that 2019 they were 13-2. They were after clinching the number one seed at this stage. So Robert Griffin III actually played the whole game. Didn't get Jackson wasn't even togged out. And then obviously this year I was hoping, I was like, look, because you're looking at all the other permutations. So it's like, okay, right, Jacksonville maybe baiting the Coles. Yeah, look, but it ended up happening. But you're thinking, oh, slim chance. But like they need to win this game. If they beat the Steelers, they're going to put themselves in a position. And I just thought by divine intervention, Jackson will come back. But no, still haven't seen him playing. So that's certainly going to be on the list. And it'll have to be stuck into a holiday, whether Grania likes it or not, to be honest.
Well, fingers crossed that you will get to see him, in the 2022 season, whether that's in December or potentially even in the postseason. If the Ravens, I think, could be there or thereabouts. But you've been really generous with your time, Owen. We want to thank you for joining us on the Irish NFL Show. Wish you good luck for the upcoming season with Kilkenny, and I'm sure there'll be some great games, but hopefully we'll welcome you back. And you never know, maybe the Ravens will be playing in London.
Yeah, please God. Listen, thanks so much for having me on, guys. Loved it.
Oh, and thanks a million. And the great thing about doing this pre-recorded is to break this, not breaking news anymore, when this was like Tony Jefferson has just signed with the Ravens just seconds ago. So you're happy, man. Oh, and thanks a million, mate.
Interested. Yeah, Jesus, right. I turned the phone on the ground actually, so I haven't seen the notification. So it's like, right, on it, the fact it's live here. So it's like, right, I don't want the phone buzzing, but no, that's good. Look, experience as well, but yeah, certainly whether he can last a 17 game season, that remains to be seen too.
Oh, and thanks a million, mate.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Cheers on.